Sony has taken the reps of its 2023 BRAVIA TV lineup, spearheaded by the flagship A95L Master Series QD-OLED, followed by the X95L Mini LED TV and the A80L series of WRGB OLED, which doesn't use an MLA panel. Let's start with the Sony A95L, which is the world's first QD-OLED TV to support 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming, thanks to the inclusion of the new Mediatek Pentonic 1000 chipset within the BRAVIA XR processor. However, as mentioned in my CES scoop, the Pentonic 1000 will only be equipped with two HDMI 2.1 ports capable of FRL or fixed rate link signaling for 4K 120Hz gameplay in HDR VRR. And so it proved on the Sony A95L, where only 2 out of 4 HDMI connections are HDMI 2.1, of which one is the eARC port. Of course, it's worth remembering that 4K 120Hz resolution and 48 gigabits per second bandwidth are essentially only needed for playing games. And even a few years after launch, there are only a handful of HDMI 2.1 source devices on the market, such as the Sony PS5, the Xbox Series X, high-end graphics cards from AMD and Nvidia, as well as the latest MacBook Pro laptops from Apple. If you only watch movies from physical media or streaming, if you don't play games, or if you own a PS5 and don't intend to buy an Xbox Series X or a gaming PC, then I would argue that you don't really need 4 HDMI 2.1 ports all capable of 4K 120Hz HDR VRR. Moving on from gaming, the Sony A95L certainly has all the ingredients to excite video enthusiasts like me. The TV will use the latest generation QD-OLED 2023 panel from Samsung Display, now available in a larger 77-inch screen size for the first time, in addition to existing 55 and 65-inch sizes. According to Samsung Display, the latest QD-OLED panels will benefit from a new hyper-efficient blue electroluminescent layer and IntelliSense AI 2.0 algorithm, resulting in higher light output compared to last year's QD-OLED panel without shortening lifespan. Sony has gone so far as to claim a peak brightness increase of up to 200% from last year's A95K, surpassing the 130% improvement quoted by QD-OLED panel supplier Samsung Display going from 2022 to 2023 QD-OLED panels. So I would be interested to find out what figures Sony is using as its baseline for calculation, or any special techniques the company has developed to achieve this unprecedented level of brightness boost from a large screen OLED TV. One possibility could be the inclusion of not only a heatsink behind the QD-OLED panel to dissipate heat in a quicker manner, but also thermal analysis orchestrated by the BRAVIA XR cognitive processor to achieve higher peak brightness. Last year, these measures allowed the Sony A95K to clear away image retention faster than the Samsung S95B, despite the presence of some graphite-based thermal pads on the S95B as revealed by a teardown performed by Quantum Dot evangelist Pete Palomaki. So let's wait and see if the Sony A95L will retain a similar advantage over the Samsung S95C when we compare them side by side later this year. With that out of the way, several new measures have been introduced on the Sony A95L and other BRAVIA XR televisions from the Japanese brand for 2023. 1. There is a new Clear Image XR algorithm within the updated BRAVIA XR cognitive processor, which can analyze the video signal characteristics to determine the original source, then apply the appropriate adaptive upscaling and noise reduction to deliver a cleaner and sharper picture. According to Sony, if you play a standard definition DVD, remember those, and upscale it to 4K resolution using your 4K Blu-ray player before sending it to the television, Clear Image XR can actually recognize that the original source signal is 480i or 576i and treat the signal as such so that it receives maximum benefit from Sony's video processing expertise. 2. A game menu overlay that sits at the bottom of the screen has been introduced on Sony's 2023 BRAVIA XR televisions. 1 year later than other Mediatek-dependent TV manufacturers such as Panasonic, Philips, and TCL, who have all introduced similar widgets in game mode last year. Sony's game menu can be summoned by pressing the settings button on the remote control while in game mode, letting you quickly adjust certain game-related settings such as VRR, black frame insertion or backlight scanning to reduce motion blur, black equalizer which brightens neo-black gamma to make enemies in the dark easier to see, a superimposed crosshair to help your aim, all without needing to access a full screen menu which will stop you from seeing the gameplay action on screen. One function that's particularly interesting and potentially useful is the ability to scale down the picture by as much as 70% to a smaller screen size, allowing you to concentrate your field of view while playing intense FPS games, because sometimes too big a size can become uncomfortable. Otherwise, there are two new features exclusive to the Sony A95L not found on other 2023 BRAVIA TVs, signaling that the A95L is the only television from Sony this year to carry the Mediatek Pentonic 1000 SoC. Feature number 1 is the aforementioned 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision support, which should be available at launch. Hopefully, this will add a much-needed Dolby Vision game mode to Sony televisions, which currently lacks a gamer-friendly picture preset in Dolby Vision mode, leading to sluggish input lag figures of more than 100 milliseconds when playing Dolby Vision games at 60 FPS. Feature number 2 is a multi-view functionality that can, for instance, let you play games while watching YouTube tutorials simultaneously. You cheater! Multi-view won't be available at launch on the Sony A95L, but will be added via a firmware update soon, only not yet. In other news, the BRAVIA Core very high bitrate streaming service will finally get Dolby Atmos support for a number of recently released titles during the first quarter of 2023, which will be music to the ears of those who own compatible Sony TVs. On the sound front, there is a new acoustic center sync technology to improve the sound quality of the TV when used as a center channel speaker in conjunction with compatible Sony audio products. Acoustic center sync works by outputting the TV sound fractionally earlier than the soundbar, triggering the precedence or Haas effect. The sound delay between the TV and the soundbar is so small that it's heard as one single sound. Yet, the earlier sound from the TV will be perceived as the dominant spatial location from which both sounds originated, therefore enhancing the emotional connection to the viewer when it comes to dialogue and speech. Sony demoed this technology using an A7000 soundbar and the new X95L mini LED TV with frame tweeters using a scene from A Star Is Born, and the result was suitably convincing. Design-wise, the Sony A95L is supported on a pair of metallic feet at both ends of the television, with the position and the non-glossy finish preventing reflections from polluting the picture on screen. Observed from the sides, the QD-OLED panel on the A95L seemed to be slanted slightly backwards. The back portion of both feet is tilted inwards, preventing it from spoiling your front view. The default feet configuration is low profile, which gives a premium, minimalistic appearance, but you can also opt for a higher, propped-up position to accommodate a soundbar or perhaps even a game console. The largest 77-inch A95L gets a third, central stand position whose footprint is small enough to fit on a narrower piece of AV furniture. The BRAVIA A95L ships with an updated premium remote which now provides 2 additional direct access buttons to YouTube and Crunchyroll respectively. In terms of OLED, one rung down from the Sony A95L is the BRAVIA A80L, available in 4 screen sizes of 55, 65, 77 and 83 inches. To be clear, the Sony A80L will use regular WRGB OLED panels, not the most advanced MLA or microlens array panels from LG Display. This means that in 2023 and the foreseeable future, there is no TV brand that will offer both QD-OLED and MLA OLED TVs. If I have time, I will do a video explaining why it just makes no financial and business sense for any manufacturer to carry both OLED technologies. The Sony A80L sits on a pair of diamond-shaped sticks, which can be installed in the wide position, the higher soundbar position, or a narrower central position. The TV comes with a black remote control whose glossy front fascia appears to be a dust and fingerprint magnet. Just like on the A80K last year, the anti-glare coating on the 77-inch A80L we saw at Sony's launch event in the UK was semi-matte, contributing to a slightly lower perceived contrast in a brighter environment. Then again, the QD-OLED panel without polarizer on the flagship A95L also doesn't look inky black in the presence of ambient light when the screen is off. So perhaps Sony is pushing potential customers towards its LED LCDs for use in a brighter room. There are no new 42-inch and 48-inch OLEDs from Sony for 2023, so last year's BRAVIA A90K will be carried over for those who want a smaller Sony OLED television. On the LED LCD front, the Sony X95L Mini LED TV is the direct successor to the X95K, offering higher peak brightness and roughly 20% more dimming zones for better light control and blooming suppression. Based on the number of local dimming zones implemented on last year's X95K, a 20% increase still amounts to less than the zone count on flagship mini LED TVs from Samsung, TCL and Hisense. However, Sony has always prided itself on superior local dimming algorithm, believing that it's not the stats, but how you use it. Yeah, that's what I tell myself every night too. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars and all your other technology needs. The mid-range Sony X90L will have higher peak brightness and up to 60% more local dimming zones than last year's BRAVIA X90K, depending on screen size, with the highlight being a new 98-inch model, complete with side handles for easier transport. There is no new 8K mini LED TV from Sony this year because of stricter EU energy regulations. Talking of which, Sony has introduced a new eco dashboard on its 2023 BRAVIA TVs, collating most eco-related settings on one single page. A virtual tree will gradually grow with each energy-saving measure engaged, which Sony hopes will encourage viewers to become more eco-conscious. However, leaving the wrong energy-saving settings enabled will most definitely affect picture quality, as I've previously demonstrated in the most watched video on my YouTube channel here.